The Kremlin is looking to squeeze the life from Ukraine by capturing its roots, Kyiv. The Russian invasion now laying siege to the capital and those of the nearly 4 million residents who are left. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says civilian sites are being targeted and innocent people are being killed. Apartments and homes devastated by rocket attacks. Still, many Ukrainians are standing their ground, fighting for their homeland despite being outnumbered and outgunned, including Zelensky showing himself in the streets of Kyiv amidst false reports he had fled. Here we are, says a defiant Zelensky on the streets of Kyiv. His message, the citizens are here and we are here. We defend our independence. Zelensky may now be Putin's priority target, seeking to destabilize Ukraine from the top down. The president also urging the world to act and add tougher sanctions against Russia. Right now, he and others say Ukraine is alone. Underground, people seek shelter, hiding, even sleeping in metro stations built to withstand Cold War attacks. Others have chosen to run. The United Nations estimates more than 50,000 Ukrainians have already sought safety elsewhere, the majority in Moldova and Poland. Some border crossings are now lined with vehicles, others with families fleeing on foot in the cold. This young woman says it took her nearly 24 hours to get to Poland.
I really don't know what to do. I can pray God to save our hospitals and that Russian will stop bomb Ukraine, and hope my native people will be safe and I can meet them again.
Others have tried to leave on trains. The scene becoming so frantic at times, guards fired rounds into the air to regain control of frantic crowds. Many have no choice but to stay put and hope, even as Russia continues to advance, that they'll be okay.
As the sounds of war overrun Ukraine and people run for cover, in a country where men are being told to fight, these sounds are hard to bear. Here, a man can hardly break away from his daughter and his partner. For those who remain, there are deep signs of defiance, people who are unwilling to yield. This woman confronted heavily armed Russian soldiers. "You are occupiers and fascists," she says. "Take these seeds and put them in your pockets. At least," she says, "sunflowers will grow when you die here." The sunflower is Ukraine's national flower. And on this rocky island in the Black Sea, the same will to resist. A Russian warship blared an ultimatum at a small team of Ukrainian border guards. "Lay down your arms and surrender," they said. "Otherwise, you'll be bombed." Their response? Russian warship, "Go F yourself." The ship opened fire. Ukraine says 13 border guards were killed. Across the country, people are choosing to fight rather than flee. This apartment block in Kyiv took a direct hit. Inside, Oksana Golenko was thrown across her bedroom. "I was completely confused," she says. "I heard screams, sounds. I got up and saw all the windows smashed." She and her daughter are now picking up the pieces, and under her breath, she's singing Ukraine's national anthem. "Long live Ukraine," she says.
Kiev's Maidan Square. Crucible of Ukraine's people power revolution, menaced through the night by the sound of constant gunfire and explosions. The fighting is coming closer and closer to the centre. This is thought to have been filmed on one of the main routes into the city, burning vehicles on Poeple or Victory Avenue. Across the capital, the sound of explosions through the night, as Ukraine's president issued this call to arms to his people.
We will not lay down the weapons. We will defend our state, because our weapon is our truth. And the truth is that this is our land, our country, our children. And we will defend all of that.
More apocalyptic scenes sear the night sky in the south of the country. The city of Mykolaiv lit up by a huge fireball. Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues relentlessly, columns of armour streaming through its highways. And with them reports of atrocities. This is reportedly an attack on a hospital in Melitopol. In Kiev, Ukrainian forces are deploying as the Russians encircle their city. Fighting in these residential areas could lead to huge civilian loss of life. The mass exodus from the capital.
In Mariupol war der Artilleriebeschuss deutlich zu sehen und zu hören. Auch in Kharkiv erleuchtete der Horizont in der Nacht. Am Morgen waren dann zerstörte Häuser in der Stadt zu sehen. Auch die russischen Bodentruppen sind in Bewegung. Kriegsfahrzeuge wurden auf dem Weg in Richtung Donbass gesichtet. Und dann auch in der Ukraine, wie hier in Donetsk, das von Separatisten kontrolliert wird. Der ukrainische Präsident Volodymyr Zelensky erklärte das Kriegsrecht.
Шановні громадяни України, сьогодні вранці президент Путін оголосив проведення спеціальної військової операції на Донбасі. Росія здійснила удари по нашій військовій інфраструктурі та по нашим прикордонникам, прикордонним загонам. В багатьох містах України було чутно вибухи. Ми вводимо воєнний стан на всій території нашої держави. Хвилину тому я провів розмову з президентом Байденом. Сполучені Штати Америки вже почали гуртувати міжнародну підтримку. Сьогодні від вас, від кожного з вас потрібно спокій. По можливості залишайтесь, будь ласка, вдома. Ми працюємо. Армія працює. Працює весь сектор безпеки і оборони України. На зв'язку з вами буду постійно я, РНБО, Кабінет міністрів України. Незабаром я знов вийду на зв'язок. Без паніки, ми сильні, ми готові до всього. Ми всіх переможемо, бо ми – це Україна. Слава Україні!
An Tankstellen bildeten sich lange Schlangen. Viele Ukrainerinnen und Ukrainer wollen vorbereitet sein, wohl etwa auch für eine mögliche Flucht.
Okay.
UNO-Generalsekretär Antonio Guterres zeigte sich erschüttert.
This is the saddest moment in my tenure as Secretary General of the United Nations. So in the present circumstances, I must change my appeal. And I must say, President Putin, in the name of humanity, bring your troops back to Russia. In the name of humanity, do not allow to start in Europe what could be the worst war since the beginning of the century.
Zahlen zu Todesopfern gibt es bisher noch nicht. Gleichzeitig dürfte klar sein, das ist erst der Anfang von Putins Krieg.
I was trying to get out of Kiev 2 days, and luckily yesterday I got the free train to Lviv. And then we took the taxi, and the taxi driver on the road, he was sneaking on the road, and the police stopped him and sent him back to Lviv, and we walked about 20 kilometers, and we are exhausted.
I want to survive because I have a family in Europe. So right now in Ukraine is a dangerous place because Russian forces come from more, and every day is strange time. USA and NATO don't help us, so we don't have any chosen. We must do this something for survival. I have a problem with my health, and I have a business and ability in Europe, so it can be possible. But I don't know right now. I just want to try.
Меня толкнули.
Нет войне! Нет войне! Нет войне!
Господи, как это называется? Указ, не указ, что там он распоряжение отдал о своих этих, о начале военных действий. Он должен это прекратить. Вот. Что для этого нужно сделать, я не знаю. Все, что мы можем, это просто сказать, что не согласны.
Потому что мы считаем, что все конфликты должны решаться мирным путем, без применения насилия в чью-либо сторону.
Вы нарушаете законодательство о публичных мероприятиях.
Meine Mutter und dann explodierte etwas gleich nebenan. Luftschutzbunker werden geöffnet, Menschen sammeln sich in U-Bahn-Stationen, Familien packen ihre wichtigsten Sachen, um einfach nur wegzukommen, weg vom Krieg. Wir müssen gehen. Was passiert hier bloß, sagt diese Frau. Auch in Kiew beginnt die Flucht. Kilometerlange Staus ziehen sich durch die Stadt. Wir sind auf dem Weg, die Kinder zu holen und sie in Sicherheit zu bringen. Putin, was für ein böser Mann. Es bilden sich Schlangen vor Tankstellen und Bankautomaten. Unterdessen sind längst auch russische Bodentruppen über die Krim und Belarus eingedrungen. Der Präsident der Ukraine verhängt das Kriegsrecht.
From Ukraine, the health minister of the country has said that 198 civilians, including 3 children, have been killed so far by the Russian armed forces attacking the pro-Western country. 1 lakh Ukrainians also, meanwhile, appear to have crossed border into Poland. That's opened its space for people who are fleeing the country. But this is big. Casualties, which means are increasing. According to the health minister of Ukraine, 198 civilians, almost 200, including 3 children, have succumbed by the Russian assault in Ukraine. And these are, remember, for now only the official figures that have come, while we see explosions, attacks, missile attacks specifically there in Ukraine, people literally having to take up arms if they are not fleeing the country already, all because Ukraine is claiming that they were a pro-Western country. But the ones who are surviving, trying to find a safe shelter, 1 lakh Ukrainians, according to the government, have already crossed the border into the adjacent nation, Poland. Let's go across to Rajesh Pawar, who's been tracking all the latest from Mariupol. Rajesh, about 200 civilian casualties, 3 children. This is what was feared. This is why there are protests taking place in Russia as well. But it's very tragic to hear that, 3 children, including in...
Russia overnight launched its long-anticipated attack on Ukraine, striking military posts across the country. An unprovoked war in Europe is now underway. The assault began with an angry message from President Vladimir Putin broadcast in the middle of the night. Russia cannot feel safe, develop, and exist with a constant threat emanating from the territory of modern Ukraine, he said, describing the government in Kiev as a junta of neo-Nazis determined to build nuclear weapons. As Putin spoke, seemingly on cue, Russian bombs started falling. Cruise and ballistic missiles, Ukrainian officials said, along with attack helicopters striking military installations, including air bases near the capital, Kiev. And more military targets in several other Ukrainian cities, including Kharkiv, the biggest city in eastern Ukraine. Russia claimed to have eliminated much of Ukraine's defenses, but the Russian reports appear exaggerated. Several videos showed what Ukrainian officials described as columns of Russian tanks entering Ukrainian territory. A potentially devastating war in Ukraine has just begun, but appears to be a gradual assault. Putin, who said he does not want to occupy the country, may be trying to take Ukraine without having to fight hard for it, appealing to the military not to resist. But there are no signs Ukrainians are raising the white flag. While some Ukrainians in Kiev were heading out of the capital, many are determined to stay and resist. In Mariupol, people this morning were stocking up on cash with long lines at the ATMs. How are you feeling? I'm nervous and I'm trying to keep my children calm, said Yulia.
Putin says he's doing Ukrainians a favor by trying to get rid of their Nazi fascist government. What do you think about that?
We don't need his protection, she said, and dismissed Putin's claims as lies. Supermarkets were flooded too, 45-minute waits for checkout. This is our Ukraine. I'm staying. I'm calm. I'm even smiling, said Ivan. Ukraine has mobilized its forces and begun to defend its cities. The government is calling for urgent blood donations to treat the growing but still unclear number of casualties.
This video from Ukraine's Interior Ministry, and it shows a city on the country's northeastern border, about 2 hours drive from Kharkiv. There is a lot of video that we are seeing on social media, but we are keeping to official, verified sources for you this morning. This video from Ukraine's National Border Guard Service. It is said to be surveillance camera video. That's why it's silent. But as you can see, a road near the border with Belarus, and you can see there what Ukrainian officials say is a column of Russian armor crossing into Ukrainian territory from the north. Now, this video from the Ukrainian Border Guard Service once again, but it is from the south. And officials say it shows Russian military trucks and other forces crossing into Ukraine from Crimea, which, of course, Russia invaded in 2014. Note the distinctive white slashes and the Zs painted on the vehicles. What military experts say that is to enable the troops to identify, distinguish each other in the cases of combat. The Russian assault has been underway now for about 8 hours. This is what the president of the country, Volodymyr Zelensky, told the people of his nation. He delivered a speech as the attack began. Now, it is in Ukrainian. It is not translated, but what you'll see on the left of your screen is a rough match of what the president is saying.
You know, I spoke yesterday with a reservist, a man in his 30s, who was a member of the Territorial Defense Forces who'd been called up. This happened as the country was preparing, and you got the sense that things were getting serious. And he talked about you know, his role and his desire and what he thought this fight was about. And he said, I want people to know in the West that this is actually a fight about democracy. It's about the rule of law. This isn't a fight over land, even though, of course, people want to keep their land. It is their country. But he said this is about something bigger than that. This is about shared human values and civilization. And I think that that's something that people feel very strongly, and they perhaps feel it even more so because of that, you know, rather chilling speech that Vladimir Putin gave on Monday, in which he basically seemed to be denying the right of Ukraine to exist, saying it never really had.
Russian forces were at the very edge of the city on Friday morning following a night of airstrikes that hit, among other targets, a civilian building. The Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, remained defiant. He said that he will not surrender and that Ukraine will have to fight this battle because the rest of the world is just sitting and watching.
Assault on Ukraine's capital city.
Russian forces pounded Kyiv with heavy artillery overnight as they inch closer to the Ukrainian capital. Fighting has spilled onto the streets. Video shows a missile striking an apartment building early Saturday morning. Ukrainian troops are fighting back, saying they destroyed this Russian convoy on the outskirts of the city. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, is vowing to stay put in the capital and fight on, rallying Ukrainians to defend their nation. The president reportedly refused an offer from America to evacuate, saying he needs more ammunition, not a ride. Ukrainian TV is even its third day has killed more than 100 people and forced more than 100,000 to flee Ukraine.
I have a 5-year-old kid, and I have also my sister who has 2 kids, so we are really scared and don't know what will happen here.
Thousands more have taken shelter underground, many in subways, not knowing what they will find when they come back out.
Within the confines of this community center, the people of Dnipro rally to the cause, the defense of their city, the defense of their homes. The building was a blur of frenetic energy, of civic activism and patriotism as they prepare for war.
At first, we were scared, really scared. But now we are ready to fight. And fight like hell. So.
Some brought bed rests and blankets for the army. Others brought in medicine for the internally displaced. And new recruits for the military streamed through the door, although some seem less certain about it than others.
Изготавливаю алюминиевые окна, алюминиевые конструкции для больших домов. Ну, сейчас мне надо будет воевать.
You're ready to fight, you're ready to use a gun.
Уже готов. Раньше, может быть, у меня были какие-то сомнения, но теперь я готов точно. Это война.
Katerina Kozy is a bank manager with two daughters aged 11 and 4, and she's going to fight. Are you prepared to use a weapon?
Я гадаю, що так, але я стріляла тільки в тирі. Насправді, у мене не дуже там багато досвіду, але я швидко вчусь.
These budding recruits will hand over their details and wait for the call. Citizen fighters in a nation which is rapidly mobilizing. And the army has hundreds of thousands to draw on.
This is an extraordinary thing. A spontaneous army forms in the middle of the city, although many here have little or no military experience. But it doesn't seem to matter.
The Russians have a very strong military.
Моя думка, що один український воїн вартий як щонайменше 7 росіян.
Ukraine above all, they cry. National pride fuels donations and possible recruits, and it provides people who are ready to make arms. Round the back of the center, residents got together to make Molotov cocktails. They're messy and they're fiddly. They take time to make, but their efforts are approved by the Ministry of Defense.
I worry that a lot of people could lose their lives.
Мы не боимся умереть за нашу украинскую землю.
We're not afraid to die for our Ukrainian land, they said. The reality of war draws in on this city, a crucial transport hub in the east. And the people who live here know they may need to fight and die for it.
Уже штук 20 пролетіло. Не видно українського герба. Точно російські. Прямо над хатами. Прямо ось над хатами літають, падли. Полетіли в сторону аеропорта. Бомблять аеропорт. Чути, що йде бій. Вже штук 30 нарахував точно.
Блядь, их тут реально дохуя. Вот еще летят. Это пиздец. Это просто пиздец.
И таких штук 30. Капец, он седает. Да. Таких уже штук 30, наверное, пролетело.
Ракеты одна за одной. Одна за одной ракеты с Приднестровья по Украине.
Звідки вони хуяють, блядь?
Звідки?
Друга ракета на Васильковський аеродром.
Мариупольского аэропорта.
Итак, сделали 2 захода, или даже 3, и теперь начинают бомбить. Это Су-25 Грачи. Начинает работать ПВО. Это ПВО в виде автоматов. Он уже дым какой-то идет.